Okay, welcome everybody to today's talk, which is about memoQ 11. My first impressions, problems that existed with this particular version, some recent changes that have taken place in memoQ. And also today, one of the things that we're going to be looking at afterward will be just a brief look at the memoQ users idea portal. I don't know how many of you are members of the ideas portal, but it's something that was introduced for 4 or 5 years ago, and it has proven to be a pretty useful platform for communicating issues to the memoQ development team and making your wishes known for further development. Not everything that I have put on that list has been implemented, but a lot of things that I and others have suggested has been implemented in one form or another. And it's a good opportunity for all of us to sort of gang up together and give our feedback. So those are the two main areas that I want to cover with all of you today. Well, memoQ 11, for me at least, seemed to get off to a little bit of a rough start. Although part of that was a coincidence. Almost immediately after the initial version of memoQ 11 was released, that was build 13, or in the memoQ numbering system, 11.0.13. People who were using memoQ in a virtual machine on a Mac, usually with these M1 chips, which apparently require a version of Windows 11 called, ARM Windows. Uh, my German brain always looks at that, and ARM in German means poor Windows, yeah, poor users. But a lot of people who had been using Macs in the virtual machines were unable to get it to work. Now, if you are one of those people, you know that typically when you report a problem like that to memoQ support, they give you the standard lecture about how memoQ was never intended to work under Windows and et cetera, et cetera. Nonetheless, they did address that problem. People who were trying to do the installation in the first days got an error message like this one, which was kind of mysterious to them. But a short time later, a version of the installer was released that took care of that problem. So if you had that experience and you were frustrated and were unable to install memoQ version 11, download a new installer and try again, and you should be able to succeed. Okay, the current version of the installer does appear, according to the reports I've heard from users, it does appear to install just fine on a Macintosh running Windows 11 under parallels with this ARM Windows 11 version. The other thing that almost everybody was experiencing were lots and lots of what I call unexpected exits, i.e., the program just quits all of a sudden. You're doing something, and then all of a sudden you say to yourself, wait a minute, wasn't I running memoQ? It's gone. And you have to start it all over again. This happened to me a lot. Right after I installed uh, memoQ version 11. And I thought, oh my God, this is a problem. So I always keep multiple versions of memoQ installed on my computer, which is a good practice for everybody to follow. So I just went back to my older versions. I think I had 10.6 and 9 point something or other installed at the same time, because I work on servers of various kinds, and you always need to have the same major version when you're doing project management work or administrative work on a server. And I found the same problem in the older memoQ versions. So once again, if you have tried to install or have installed memoQ version 11, and you find that the program is constantly quitting on, depending on your older version, you may or may not have that other issue, but It's not a memoQ 11 problem. In fact, it's not even really a memoQ problem per se. There was a recent Windows update. Now, I thought that it was an update from, I think it was June 23rd, and I put a note on Substack to that effect, but it seems I was mistaken about that. It was probably the update just before then. But memoQ has, in the meantime, released a permanent fix for that issue. It was due to a Windows update, yeah. Anyway, both of the major problems that I observed after the release of memoQ 11 seem to have been resolved. Okay, as I said, the new installer has been updated to work with Windows ARM. So all of you who like to use Macintoshes with the virtual machine parallels or whatever, with that version of Windows 11 should be okay now. And for those who are experiencing problems with memoQ suddenly quitting all the time, there is a workaround that will help take care of this problem with the Windows 11 update. And I'm going to share this solution because I do not know whether the fix that has been implemented for the latest build of memoQ 11 has also been implemented in some of the older versions of memoQ that are still supported. They probably will. I honestly don't know. I haven't had time to ask the support group what the status of this is. So if you're running, say, memoQ 10.5 or whatever, and you notice that it's quitting a lot, you can use the following solution to get memoQ to stop quitting unexpectedly all the time. What you do is you find the executable file that starts memoQ, or if you stuck it down on the taskbar, like I tend to do, just right click on the taskbar icon, usually at the bottom of your screen, and then go up to find memoQ 11, right click again, and you'll be able to choose the properties dialog. You want to get to the properties dialog for the application in any case. And on the tab for compatibility, down toward the bottom, you can, excuse me, you can see a little checkbox, which is marked in the screenshot on the right here. And it says, run this program as an administrator. And whatever problem it was that was created by the Windows 11 update, it can apparently be solved by checking this box. Now, there are other ways to run as an administrator, but what this does is it sets your memoQ in whatever version you're doing this to run as the administrator every time you launch it. There are ways to start a program and run it as an administrator only that one time as you're starting it. But what's the point if it's going to crash on you all the time? So again, if you're using an older version of memoQ that experiences this problem now under Windows 11, use this fix until such time as the memoQ development team may get around to offering a patch for those older versions. However, they have already implemented an apparent permanent fix in build 17, so version 11.0.17, which is the current version that you will get if you go to the memoQ website and do a download. So, I really have to give it to the development team because two pretty major, pretty high profile problems that caused a lot of consternation and grumbling in social media, help forums, and elsewhere, they took care of them very quickly. Okay, as fast as you can reasonably expect any support and development organization to do. So, they get a big bundle of flowers from me for that. They really did do a good job, as they often do. Um, so good work on that one. Um, One of the things I noticed when I started up memoQ 11 for the first time and I got to my dashboard was that there was a little bit of a different look. And honestly, when I saw the difference, I expected a lot more differences in memoQ 11 versus the earlier versions that I've been using. It turns out really not to be the case. Here on the right side of the screen, I'm showing the major visual difference that you'll notice on your dashboard when you start memoQ 11 versus the older versions. And that is the way that progress is shown for the translation of the files. On the left side screenshot for progress, you see the three shades of green that we're all used to, with the dark green indicating how far the translator has gone, and then an overlapping other shade of green showing how far reviewer one has gone, and so forth. And if you want to see the actual percentages of progress for each of these three roles in the handling of a given file, you have to move your mouse over the particular bar. In fact, I did that with one of them. You probably can't even see it, or maybe you can if your eyes are better than mine, but down toward the bottom of the screen on a file that hasn't even been started, I actually had my mouse over that, and it says T0%, R10%, R20%, but it's such a light shade of gray, I can't really see it. With my eyes, I have a lot of problems with contrast in a lot of applications today. Seems like a lot of things are being done by young programmers with perfect vision who seem to think that shades of gray on shades of gray are perfectly easy for everybody else to read. I beg to differ. But in any case, memoQ has done a good thing now. On the right side, you see what the progress bars now look like. They have separated the translator, reviewer one, and reviewer two progress bars. They have made the percentages of completion in a darker font, so it's easier for me to read. And they've gone to a shade of light blue that, for my eyes at least, does not interfere with reading the progress of translation for a given file. So this was a big, obvious difference in my first impression of memoQ 11. Yeah, project progress bars are much easier to read. So thank you once again to the product designers and the development team. I think you did a good thing there. Okay, no more mouse overs are required in order to read the percent of progress on any of those three roles tasks. Okay, but what else changed in memoQ 11? Okay, I was expecting a lot of changes, honestly. But in that sense, no. Okay, one of the best ways to find out, and we'll actually take a little bit of a tour through there, is to go and ask the "What am I missing?" page. Now, if you don't know what that is, you're going to get to see it, and we're going to do a little bit of exploration there. In fact, just to kind of guide me when we get to the live demo part of this talk, if all of you could please just type the memoQ version that you are currently using for most of your work into the chat, I will try to pull that up and have a look at it when I go out into my browser and begin looking at some of the changes that have taken place. So that way we can show you all live what may or may not be relevant to you. Okay, this is what that page looks like on the memoQ website. I wrote an article about this on my old blog in Google Blogger about, I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. Anyway, it's not hard to find. And I will also put links to this page when I post this recording and the sample data and so forth on the memoQuickies Substack. So if you don't remember where this is or how to get there, there will be a link there to help you go there directly and find out for the version that you yourself use what the differences are and decide whether it is worth getting an upgrade. Okay, so yeah, there haven't been that many changes really. Okay, this is the URL. It's memoq.com/memoq hyphen features hyphen u hyphen mist. Okay, and then the parameter after that was just for the version that I was doing the original comparison for. You could actually change that parameter yourself or just use the page itself to choose your version. If you have a version before 8, it'll only give you information for version 8 or later. But if you're back in version 7, well, it would be 7.8 from 2015, 9 years ago, trust me, there's lots of stuff that justify an upgrade. Lots and lots of stuff. Okay, so what else changed? Well, here's the complete list that I determined to be relevant to freelancers. It's actually not the same as the freelancer list that will be shown to you on the page because for some reason they classified the last item as being something that's only of interest to LSPs. I beg to differ. Freelancers use fragment assembly too. Okay, well, let's just read through the list together. Okay, in memoQ version 11, you now have access to Taos custom models to increase the accuracy of AIQE. Do you know what AIQE is? Oh, I assume it has something to do with artificial intelligence. And my guess is the QE part is probably quality estimation. Now, I saw a colleague of ours on the Facebook memoQ group talking about AIQE recently. He's a Chinese professor that's pretty technically fit and into these things. It's one of many quality assessment related features that are part of memoQ. I personally am not a big fan of a lot of the artificial intelligence features. I think it's really more hype than useful stuff. You may have a different opinion on that, which is just fine. But if you know about this, it looks like something good happened. Okay, the second item is probably also relevant to a lot of people. I think it'll certainly be relevant to a lot of my Portuguese colleagues. There have been some updates to the Hunspell dictionaries that are used as one possible option for spell checking in memoQ. The other option is to use the integrated spell checker in Microsoft Word. So now probably the Portuguese dictionaries will follow the current orthographic convention, which I think is only 30 years old now. So they're finally getting around to offering updated dictionaries for that. And there are surely other improvements to dictionaries that may be relevant to some of you. So have a look at that feature and see if the changes in the Hunspell dictionaries can benefit you. The one item that really stood out as potentially of interest to me and other people doing independent work with memoQ is the new Markdown filter. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. At first, I thought Markdown, I confused it with BB code. I thought, what the heck is that? And then I realized later when I read about it on Wikipedia that I actually did know what Markdown was. I just called it something else. But we'll have a look at that and you'll get samples to test it out on your system too when you have memoQ 11 installed. For those who work with Chinese or have friends or colleagues whose native or working languages include Chinese, there are now 2 versions of the memoQ desktop software installer in versions of Chinese for the mainland and also for Taiwan. probably they're going to be getting a nasty letter from the Chinese Communist Party over that second part. And who knows, maybe they'll threaten to bomb Budapest or something as a result. But memoQ seems to be trying to help everybody in the Chinese speaking world. Okay, for those who use Textra for their machine translation, there seems to be a plugin update. I don't use Textra, so I can't say how significant that is or not. And then for those who are irritated by fragment assembly being checked by default in a pre-translation, as of version 11, fragment assembly is unchecked by default in pre-translation, apparently for both memoQ Web and the desktop clients. That's kind of a minor issue. So really, what are the changes between memoQ 10.6 and memoQ 11 that are as significant to those of us who don't work on servers or don't do project management tasks on servers and mostly do independent work on our own copies of memoQ, whether we're connected to a server or not. For me, the big changes are those progress bars, which make it easier to track the progress of things. If I'm back on some server-based project and want to see what's going on with the reviewer 1 or reviewer 2, that actually is kind of helpful. It just makes it a little bit simpler to get an overview of what's going on for me. And maybe this Markdown filter would be important. Although, honestly, I've never been given a Markdown file to translate. But it does seem that this format, which has been around for more than 20 years now, is gaining in popularity, probably because of the difficulties of having so many different authoring platforms that become the places from which source files are taken for translation. And so this kind of becomes a simplified version of marking things like italics and so forth, so that there is less data loss or corruption when moving between one platform or another. So my suspicion with memoQ now making this part of the standard filter set that's offered in the tool is that this is on the rise. And if you haven't seen a Markdown file in one of your jobs yet, chances are it may happen before long. And I will give you some samples or some indications in the follow-up article where I have the sample data and so forth, so that you can explore this not so new file format, but this new filter, and see how well it works, where you can make your own sample files in the languages that are relevant to you, so that you can train with your collaboration partners or your team and be prepared in case some of these show up. And for those of you who teach academic courses involving CAT tools, maybe this is a format that you should include in your practice exercises somewhere. I will certainly do that the next time I do a course at the university in Lisbon. Anyway, so that kind of seems to be what's going on. And we'll look at what the comparisons are between 11 and some other versions in just a little bit. Okay, here's just a quick look at what Markdown looks like. Okay, I've opened it up in a text editor, in this case, Notepad++, just because I use Notepad++ for a whole bunch of things. Okay, so this is what naked Markdown looks like if you open it up in a text file. It doesn't look all that complicated. If you were importing this to memoQ with a text editor, however, you might not understand that some of the symbols there, like the double asterisk or the greater than symbol, or other things, single asterisk, that these actually have a significance for formatting. So they are essentially kind of like tags. And so when you are translating this text file, it's just a text format without a proper filter, you do run the risk of messing up the format if you are not already pretty familiar with what Markdown is and what the purpose of those different symbols are. So it's really an extremely helpful thing for translators who don't have a solid technical knowledge of Markdown format that memoQ has now offered this filter. Once again, my praise to the developers and the product planners for this. This was a helpful thing that they've done. And this slide has a reference down the bottom to the Wikipedia page where you can read the whole 20 plus year history of Markdown if you are so inclined. Now, when you bring it into memoQ version 11 with the new filter, this is what it looks like. As usual, up above, you have the text extracted pretty much as text in all the same font and all that. You do see WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Formatting for certain elements for italic, as you see in line number 4, for bold, and oh dear, monospace. It doesn't seem to be handling it correctly, and it made a tag out of that. So my guess is if you had to translate the word monospace that you see very well down in the preview, you would probably have to use the memoQ features for editing text inside of tags. Now, I made this slide about an hour before this talk, so I haven't had time to go test that, but I will later, and I will put the results either in a post on the Substack blog for memoQ or in a note there or whatever. You can also try that yourself if you are so inclined. But in any case, the import, for the most part, seems to work pretty well. And in fact, in memoQ's description of this filter, I don't remember the exact words, but they phrased the description of the filter in such a way that made it clear that it is mostly compatible with the major versions of Markdown. And when you read the Wikipedia article, which describes the history of Markdown, you'll understand why, kind of like latex, it's not an easy target to get everything. But I think they've done a pretty good job for the first cut. And if it becomes a format of significance to a lot of the user base, which it probably already is, or they wouldn't have done the filter. They usually don't do filters until a lot of people are screaming for them. Okay, then they will probably make additional improvements, or we can find workarounds to deal with incompatibilities like we see with the word monospace, which is probably buried somewhere inside of that tag. So anyway, oh yeah, and one more thing that I want to take a look at today is the whole issue of TM Plus that those of you who showed up a little bit early heard me chatting about with today's attendees. This is a feature that was introduced, I think it's about a year and a half ago, and that I recently wrote a blog article in the memoQuickies Substack called TM Plus at Your Own Risk. And there was some misunderstanding about what that was about. There was apparently an argument in one of the listservs for memoQ, where somebody looked at that subtitle and said that no, this is just a problem with memoQ 10.5, and I've had no problems at all, and everything works fine when I do it in memoQ 11. Right. That's not the case, actually. And when somebody writes as of version 5, then you can, and doesn't say that, oh no, it's not a problem anymore. You can probably expect that this is a problem in 10.6, which it is, and version 11. Actually, it's a problem with any version of memoQ that uses TM plus. But the problem that we have now is that in version 10.5, for reasons that escape me, but I can't imagine that any of them are good, the product planners of memoQ decided to make this defective TM plus format the default whenever you create a new translation memory in memoQ. And the consequence of this is that sometimes users are running into problems. They don't understand what's going on because the operation worked fine before. And if they go back to an older version of memoQ, 9.6 or whatever, everything works fine. And so they think, oh, maybe it's a problem with version 10 point whatever of memoQ or version 11 or whatever. No, the problem is TM plus, and the problem still exists in memoQ 11. We're going to take a look at that if we've got time, and I'm going to make the test data and a backup of a project with everything configured so you can just restore it on your own system and test it out yourself and verify that I'm right about this. And you know, the problem was when I was creating that test project to share with all of you, I did it with two target languages. English is the source language, German and Portuguese as targets. You can do it in some other language if you feel like it. I had to make 8 TMs. And of the 8 TMs, I made 4 of them in TM plus format, and I made 4 of them in the old format. I would be embarrassed if I told you how many times I had to redo the TMs that I was doing in the so-called classic format, because since the dialogue for creating translation memories defaults to TM plus, while I'm busy typing the name of the TM and writing something down in the description and thinking about other things and listening to the dogs bark and whatever, I create what was supposed to be a TM in the classic format, but is in fact TM plus format, and then I have to delete it and start all over again. So that was a lot of work, a lot more work than it should have been. And honestly, that to me just underscored the problem. Okay, but why is that a problem? Okay, according to source who must not be named because he's so angry, I'm afraid he may challenge me to a duel one of these days soon. A highly placed source within memoQ is extremely angry that I am publicly criticizing TM Plus because he claims that they are not seeing any problems. Well, I'm sorry, but if the support and testing team is not seeing problems, that just tells me they're not testing. Okay, and something like a project TM is a pretty common thing for people to do, LSPs at least, but also as an independent, when I have sent some work out, either outsourcing or just passing something on to a colleague, and I want to give them some TM data that will help them translate a particular set of files, but I don't want to give them my entire TM. I use the project TM feature in the statistics dialog to create that subset of a translation memory or translation memories that I'm going to share with them. And unfortunately, all of that is broken if TM Plus is involved. And I will make a test project available to all of you where you can verify that this is in fact an issue. Okay, so now it's time for us to go have a look at a few things live. And let's see, I am screen sharing, I hope. Okay, yeah, here we are back at the Wikipedia article, which I encourage all of you to use. Okay, so first off, there is that what am I missing page on memoQ. This is a really useful thing that they did. And it has on the page two things that may be of interest to a lot of you. There is this little feature here to select the memoQ version you are currently using. Okay, I did 10.6. We talked about the differences. So just for fun, I'm going to choose version 10.2. Okay, and so now it will refresh the screen. It's a little bit slow right now because I canceled the fiber optic service in my office. And today I'm actually using my phone for the internet connection. So if there's more lag or something, I apologize. I'm kind of testing this out for other occasions, but here we go. It has now refreshed the screen, and the comparison of features that I am missing. Okay, here are a whole bunches and bunches and bunches of features between 10.2 and 11. And there is also a little switch here for if you're a freelancer. But please keep in mind that the separation of all features or all differences, which is what the page presumably displays to us right now, and the ones that are relevant only to freelancer. This distinction is made according to the judgment of memoQ staff. And historically, I have found in many cases that they consider some features to be relevant only to LSPs and not to freelancers. And in my own working experience, that's just not the case. And I know quite a few freelancers who do make use of that. And the difference between 10.6 and 11, that thing about fragment assembly was one where for some reason, whoever did the classification decided it was just a freelancer thing. So if you mark the freelancer switch like I just did here, okay, and you look through the list and you say, gee, is that all? I want more before I pay for my service and maintenance agreement for another year or make up the backlog of the last year or two or whatever. Switch it off and have a look and see if any of that extra stuff might be of interest to you. A lot of times it's stuff that isn't of interest to you, like the customer portal or project management features where you need access to a server. But just keep that in mind and kind of look at both. Well, let's have a quick look at some of those differences. I mean, I think this is just a wonderful page. I was so happy when they put that together because it answers most of the questions that people may have. And when people ask me privately, well, I'm using version 8.4 or whatever, why should I even want to upgrade? That's so much money. I said, well, go to this page and put in the version that you've got and look at the differences and decide for yourself. You're the one who decides what's worth budgeting for, not me. Okay, I've got my priorities, you've got yours, but they put together this wonderful page that helps you make informed decisions. Another really good thing that they've done. And this kind of useful information isn't all that common from companies that are providing the tools that we use. So once again, my kudos to the team behind this. It's a really well thought out thing. Okay, so yeah, under productivity, all right, we already know about the Taos stuff, the Hunspell. Okay, yeah, TM Plus, that came as of version 10.3. Okay, for each feature, it tells you what version it came in. So if, for example, your service and maintenance agreement expired in May, you would still be entitled to upgrade your memoQ to version 10.6 because it came out before May. And so if all the features that are interesting to you stop at memoQ 10.5 or 10.6 and you don't care about the version 11 stuff, you can go ahead and upgrade under your old expired service and maintenance agreement and get access to those features. You do not need to have a new SMA to access features for versions that were covered while your service and maintenance agreement was still active. Now, my personal philosophy of all this is you should maintain the service and maintenance agreement anyway, because it's only what 120 something euros a year, I think it is. 124 last time I paid any attention to that. And for that, you get access not only to the upgrades, which many people say, oh, I don't need those. Okay, maybe you don't, but when you have problems or you have questions, this means that support will help you without any hesitation. Now, sometimes they still help you even if your agreement is lapsed. They often do that, in fact. Really, memoQ has been one of the best companies I've seen for that. They don't say, go jump off a cliff somewhere because your service and maintenance agreement expired last month, and now you can go burn in hell. No, 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 no. They're about the best of any of the dozens of companies I've dealt with this. Some people get kind of irritated by it, but I think that's more on them than it is on memoQ. And also, you need to maintain that support infrastructure. If you didn't need it for the last year, you're lucky. Okay. Did you need your car insurance last year? Probably not. I hope not. Okay. But you still paid it, and it was still there in case you had an accident. And I think of those service and maintenance agreements in much the same way. It's insurance. It's there when you need it. And if you don't need it, hooray. Okay, you're lucky. But it for me, it's kind of a collective risk. Those service guys, those service and support guys, and the developers need to feed their families and put shoes on their children's feet while you're happily going and translating with an older version that works for you. So think a little bit about that team and what it's necessary to maintain the infrastructure so it'll be there when you need it. Anyway, so here, productivity, they've got more stuff. Reference files in live docs. Ooh, yeah, here, this one. Actually, there's a little drop down in most cases where you can read more information. Now, this one in version 10.3 is actually something that's been in live docs since it was first introduced more than a decade ago. And that is the ability to upload files in their original format. So a PDF as a PDF, a Microsoft Word file as a Microsoft Word file that you can also download in the original format. Or when you click on it in the live docs corpus, it opens with the program that your computer uses to open those kinds of files. The content is not indexed for matching in translation or concordance. It's there as a reference. So you can have an instructional video, for example, or if you have a video subtitling job, somebody can include the actual video as part of a live docs corpus. Okay, and you click on it, it downloads locally, and then you can use it with that video preview tool and so on. So it's very useful. But this was always a very hard feature for people to use because first it was called binary format, which is really kind of nerdy and nobody knows what that means. And then for a while it was called corpus only format. And so now the latest jargon that they're using to refer to these files in their original formats is reference files. But a lot of things can be reference files, including our TMs. But I'm not going to split hairs. Anyway, trust me, they've made it easier to put original format stuff into a live docs corpus. They put some stuff up in the menu ribbon to make it easier. I think I've even got a video on this already in a couple of places. So maybe I'll link that in the follow-up article for this talk. I certainly have plans to do a few more videos that involve that. That was one of the things that I really celebrated because I tell people to put original format files in their live docs corpora all the time. But then I had to explain a lot of weird stuff before they could figure out how to do it. And then they would forget a few days later. So memoQ simplified everything a great deal. Okay. Edit the short code interpretation through a regex. No idea what the heck that means, but I'm sure it's a good thing. Okay, and then they added some advanced features, uh, look arounds, look aheads, look behinds, and so forth for the regex tagger. If you're not a regex geek, um, this doesn't matter to you so directly, but it means that if you have somebody creating special tagging solutions for you to use in your work, where you're just going to use the final result, they'll be able to create more solutions for you with this new feature in memoQ 10.3. Okay, and then down below, all right, well, that seems to be all the differences between 10.2. But if you're back on memoQ 9 something or 8 something or whatever, go to this page. It'll probably show you a lot of useful things. Okay, so, oh, with regard to Markdown, just briefly, there is now a plugin. This is a new thing to take Google Docs and be able to save a Google Doc as a Markdown file. And when I was doing a little bit of background reading on Markdown, I also saw the same kind of thing for Microsoft Word. So the fact that now various word processing platforms are scrambling to create plugins or extensions to their functionality that allow you to save in Markdown format or open Markdown files for editing. So those of you who hate cat tools, probably nobody in the audience today, but who knows? Uh, those of you who want to just translate in Microsoft Word, well, you apparently can get a plugin now for Microsoft Word that will let you open a Markdown file, edit it in Microsoft Word with the WYSIWYG features, and then save it again as a Markdown file to send your translation to your client. But these features may also be useful to you if you want to create example files of the Markdown format to use in a class that you teach somewhere. So just be aware of the fact that this resource exists. Now, just a very brief look at the memoQ ideas portal for those of you who have not been there before. Um, as I say, this is a really, really useful platform. I can look at the proposals that I've made, 38 of them apparently over the years, and see what the status of it is. So I'll go there, click on my ideas. Hopefully I'm still logged in. Yeah. All right. So one of the things I suggested was to add proper regex support to the replace field and find and replace dialogues. And apparently 28 people agree with me on that. Okay. And yeah, another thing, I had a big thing about the find and replace dialogues not letting me see what was actually going on. I wanted to see non-printing characters. So about 20 people agree with that. Yeah, a lot of you have probably had issues with how memoQ dialogues sometimes are too big for the screen that you're working on, so you can't see the OK button. Um, okay, 32 people agree with that. Yeah, so I guess a lot of people have that issue, and they still haven't done a damn thing about it. But they actually have implemented some things, a lot of things, just not necessarily things I suggest. They're not very popular. Anyway, so there's more there. But if, for example, you want to I'm just going to go get rid of the my ideas part of it here. If you want to say, okay, what, for example, have people, say you've got an idea for something to do with live docs. Okay. So you can go down this little menu on the right and say, all right, so in the population at large, there are 21 suggestions for live docs. Well, you've got a suggestion yourself. It's always a good idea to go first to that category and see if somebody else has been suggesting the same thing. And if they have, vote for it. And maybe if you want it to be a little different, you can write a comment. So, for example, multiple delete of other resources. Oh, yeah, this thing. Right. Whoever put that in didn't realize that it actually could be done. He didn't have enough sleep before he wrote that particular item. And in fact, let's see. We'll go and look at that. Okay, here's the description. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. My comment, I don't understand the problem, works fine for me. Um, yeah, it actually was a feature that had already been implemented, but you need to know that if you want to select multiple items to delete them from a LiveDocs corpus and you don't want to select a range, you hold down the control key and then just sequentially click on whichever ones you actually do want to delete. Okay, LiveDocs and memoQ Web, a whole bunch of people are interested in that. Are there any comments? Yeah, there's 5 comments. So if you want to do something with LiveDocs and memoQ Web, for example, read what the person who created this idea post was suggesting to do. See if it differs in some way from what you would like to see done, or if it inspires you, in some way that this good idea could be extended further. And then add your own comments. You can also include screenshots or graphics and other things when you write the comment. And this has proven to be a really useful, a really useful place to look. And even if you don't have ideas about memoQ, but you're a trainer or you want to learn more about memoQ, I find that the ideas portal is a really good place to go, and you can learn about where memoQ might not be meeting the needs of some other users or whatever. You can get quite an education finding out about things that certain modules in memoQ can do or cannot do before you find yourself in a situation where you desperately need that particular feature. And as I said, I have found a lot of really good suggestions from users here have already become part of the product. So the designers, product planners, the senior executives in the company take a look very frequently in this platform. And on the whole, I think it has been extremely effective and has been a positive thing for improving the functionality of the product and the user's experience. Now, let me have a quick look here at my. Okay, so yeah, let's take a brief look here at the end at memoQ 11 live. Um, Minimize this. Yeah, here's some of those files that I'm going to make available to you. All right, let's go ahead and start memoQ 11. Now, I said that everything is pretty stable in 11, so we'll just sit back and watch it all crash now. It's the demo effect that we all know about. Okay, so for example, this is that test project that I'm going to have available as a backup file for everyone. And okay, it was German and Portuguese. Let me just go to German, for example. Okay, yeah, here's where I had that Markdown sample, so you could just go and have a look and see what it looks like yourself. There you go. I'll also be giving you those files, so if you want to translate them into Turkish or whatever, you can do that too. Okay, the translation memories that I have attached to this test project are here. There is the working master, and if you look down below, it tells you that this is a TM plus. It has the name TM plus test working recipient EN-DE. It's a local translation memory, and then there's that little TM plus that appears after that that tells me what format that is in. This one that says TM plus testing master, same deal. You see TM plus down in the comment at the bottom of the screen, and then I have 2 TMs that don't say TM plus at the bottom. The classic master and another one that says recipient. Now, you may notice that the number of entries in the two so-called master TMs are the same. So what I did was I imported some legislation um, available in all the EU languages from the TMX files distributed by the DGT, and I imported them into both. So when TM Plus first came out, some people were experiencing problems with actual translation units getting lost when they were trying to migrate. I think it was mostly when they were trying to upgrade the TMs. I haven't tested that lately, so I think that problem has been fixed, but I will be testing it to confirm that. In any case, importing a bunch of TMX files to both a TM Plus and a classic TM format gave me the same results. Okay, so I am going to unselect the classic TM for purposes of the demonstration that I'm going to do right now. Yeah, I will bring it back later. This TM Classic Master. Great. Okay, so now I have three TMs attached. Okay, a TM plus TM that has 842 translation units in it, and then two other TMs that have nothing. Okay, so let's go to the translations list. And here is a piece of legislation that I downloaded from the Eurlex website in HTML format, because that'll be a little bit different than the way it's in the TM. So maybe I'll get more fuzzy matches than I would if I had it in the same format. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this one. We just open it up. All right. And yeah, typical EU legislation. All right. So yeah, all the usual stuff. So I want to send this out, outsource it to a friend of mine, and I want to prepare a project TM to share with them. So in order to do that, I go, let's see, under preparation, for example. Oh, excuse me, there's no statistics. Here we go. Documents, statistics. Okay, we'll click on that. All right, let's do it for the active document. Sure. And I want to create a project TM. All right. So now remember, what we have here is a master TM in TM plus format. All right, so let's go ahead and run the calculation. Okay, what do we have here? Right, let's look at the 100% matches. Okay, that may be kind of small on your screens. In the recording, I will do a zoom in so you can read this a little bit better. But we have 756 source words, about 5,000 characters. About 21% of the file appears to be 100% matches. And then there are a bunch of high fuzzies and everything. So yeah, definitely the project TM is going to have a lot of entries in it. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we go over here to the button for creating a project TM. Now, you have a couple of different options here. In some cases, you may be sending a TMX file. I'm going to go back and test that in a minute. But let's just say we're going to do it for an existing TM. All right, so what are the existing TMs in the projects? You see the Portuguese ones there too. That's interesting. I'm in German mode right now. I'm in a German target language, so really they probably shouldn't be showing me the Portuguese ones, but hey, I guess I can report that to support and call it a bug, and they'll call it a feature. Okay, so what do we have here? We have TM plus working recipient END. Okay, so this is the one. So this is a TM plus. Okay, it's the working TM in this project, and this is where we want to export the project TM2. Okay, so this is something you might do, for example, if you're a project manager setting up an online project and you don't want to expose the entire TM to the translators, maybe because it's very big, maybe because these translators are clever and they know that even if you don't have local copies cached, that there is a way to steal your large TM, which I'll teach you all on another day. I do this kind of thing all the time just for fun. And most companies using memoQ servers are not even aware of this option. Okay, so we have chosen that. So let's now go ahead and, whoops, I have to click export. Okay, well, let's go ahead now and have a look at that TM and see all of the data that has shown up. So we go to translation memories. Ah, here we are. See, there's our project TM. 0 translation units exported. Whoops. So I failed to create a project TM by exporting from hits found in a TM plus master TM to the working TM. Okay, let's try this again. Another way. Translations. Okay, we've got the same thing selected. Let's hit statistics again. Okay, once again, we want to create a project TM. We run the calculation. This is interesting. I'm not even getting the same numbers. Oh, yes, I am. Yes, I am. I looked in the wrong line. Okay, so we get the same results as before. 5,000 characters, 756 words, I think, if my eyesight is okay. And now we click Project TM. Okay, we want to export, this time to a TMX file. Export. And I'm going to create a new folder. Call this results. And we'll go ahead and just with the zoom bar. Oh, I need to give it a name. Okay. From TM plus master dot TMX, right? And we'll click save. Okay, it seems to have run here. All right, let me move this dialog. Zoom has all these little sub windows that get in my way. And let us have a look. Right. Where did that go? Here. Yeah, sorry about that. Just a moment. I need to remember where. Oh, it's down in a TMX folder, right? TMX, DGT samples, results. Okay, there it is. And we will open this with Notepad++. Okay. It does appear to have worked going to an external TMX file. So you are able from hits that are found in a TM, in this case, it was the master TM that is in TMX plus format, you are not able to export to an existing TM in in TM plus format. We tried that first with the working TM. That failed. Okay, but you are able to export the data from a TM plus source in a TM plus TM. You are able to export those hits to a TMX file. Now, you're going to find a different pattern of success and failure as you try different combinations there, going from maybe a classic TM master source into the others. I will map out, since we're at the end of our hour, I will map out those combinations and put them in the follow-up article for this. But as you see, there are still problems with TM plus, and there are problems that you may find in other features of memoQ where translation memories are integrated with those other features. And there are quite a few places in memoQ where there is some kind of translation memory integrated. So the takeaway here for everybody is be aware that there may be problems. Doesn't mean that there necessarily will be, but there may be problems that you will encounter. And when you run into a problem involving something with a TM, take a careful look and see whether the TMs that you're trying to do this task with are in the older classic format or if they are TM plus. And maybe set up a test where you've got the data in TMs of both kinds and try it again. Or in your conversations with support, be very clear about what kinds of TMs you're working with. That article that I published the other day that got some people at memoQ so angry was based upon a problem that somebody else was having with a completely different feature of memoQ. And their response was more to criticize the fact that the person was using memoQ under parallels on a Macintosh, but that had nothing to do with the problem. And when she stopped trying to use a TM plus TM and switched to the older format, everything worked just fine. So, this is not intended as an attack on the memoQ team. These people are some of the most responsive to their client base of any software company I've dealt with in my life. They really do a good job. But there are still issues that have not been correctly identified and have not been dealt with. And so if you are running into a problem, just have a careful look, because this TM plus issue might have something to do with it. Anyway, that is all we've got time for today. But I'm going to be around for a little bit in case anybody's got some questions. Let me stop the screen share here. Pause share. Okay. Let's see. Has it, in fact, paused the share? I can't tell. Anyway, so are there any questions from anyone? Handy cheat sheet. Oh, yeah. In the chat, somebody put in a link to a nice cheat sheet for yes, thank you, Shai. I saw some of those, and I was planning to include some of that in the follow-up article. 10.6, yeah, 10 point. Okay. Oh, so most of you are on some version of 10. Okay, so that list that we looked at was in fact relevant. And spread the word about that "what did I miss" page to other users when they ask you questions like, oh, should I even bother to upgrade? Because really, their questions can probably be answered by a quick look on that page. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, in that case, thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.
I will edit up this recording and post it on the Substack so you can review it there and also get copies of some of that test data, the link that Shai shared to the Markdown cheat sheet and some other background information that I've run into in the course of preparing this talk.
I just wanted to say, sorry, I forgot. I've I'm still working on Windows 10. I
You're able
don't
to
want to
avoid some of
upgrade
the
to Windows
problems.
11.
Yeah,
And and I've heard of problems that are on Windows 11, especially as you were saying on people who are using Macs, but not only. Um, so I've been holding back because I don't have a Mac anyway. I'm still using Windows 10,
right.
and I think there are problems with the.
Well, I don't remember exactly when I upgraded this laptop to Windows 11. It was sometime last year, I think. And I did so with a great deal of trepidation because, well, you know what happens anytime
Yeah.
you change from one operating system to another. Seems like half of the software I subscribe to breaks. And for the most part, I haven't experienced many problems. There are some things in Windows 11 that I absolutely hate, like the fact that they've gone to icons for stuff like cut, copy, and paste. I like words, okay? And
Yeah,
I when I'm always looking at a million different icons for things, I find it personally confusing at
yeah,
times.
yeah.
And it took me a long time to get used to things like that. So I spewed a lot of four-letter words at the screen over little differences like that. But in terms of functional stability, I didn't run into any problems really until this recent phenomenon where many versions of memoQ were just unexpectedly quitting. And then I tried that run as administrator workaround
Mm,
that I think was suggested to somebody by um, memoQ support. And he shared it in a discussion that we had going in the Facebook memoQ group, the English one. And it worked. Okay, so that was fine. And then I saw that shortly afterward, they released a version of 11 that took care of the problem without doing the run as administrator trick.
mhm.
And again, I thought that that was a very fast and good response by the support and development team.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I can hardly expect more from somebody. There may be other issues in 11 that I have not identified, but on the whole, now that they've taken care of those two issues, it seems to me, based upon the tests and that I've done while making training videos and just trying stuff out in the course of the last month, that memoQ 11 has fewer problems than I've been seeing with the introduction of various version 10 minor versions over the last year and I don't know how many months. Um, so it doesn't seem to me that there are any traps, any big traps that anybody is going to fall into if they upgrade to memoQ 11. There's not a whole lot of new features versus 10.x. So in terms
no,
of
that's
features,
why I haven't really done very much with it. Because the server I work with is already a 10 server. I would need an 11 if I was going to be able to use that. So I have both. I've got 10 and 11.
yeah,
Um,
that's why I kept versions of 9 on too, because I was doing things on the university server for one of the Lisbon universities where Marek Pavlich and I were teaching courses last January. And to do administrative tasks on there, I needed a
yeah,
memoQ 9 version. Then I was using version 10 in my memoQ cloud research server that memoQ very generously makes available to me so I can test things and research solutions for all of you and troubleshoot and train people and so forth. I'm very grateful to them for making those resources available.
oh,
And it is,
they are very, very very.
it's a good team. I mean, they're very irritated with me right now over the TM Plus thing. And I get a little annoyed, but really, look around. Look around at the alternatives. As
Oh
I
yeah.
kind of as I was joking with one of my friends who works for the company, it's like, oh, memoQ sucks. The thing is, everything else sucks a whole lot more.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
mostly it doesn't suck.
No,
Okay,
it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
yeah,
It has a few
as
problems.
you know, Juliet, since you're one of the more technically competent people I know, the thing about memoQ is you can do more with configuring your workflows to deal with a huge range of challenge, more than you can do with any other platform I'm aware of.
Yeah,
And I'm aware of a lot of them. I've messed with a lot of them. And every time I look at Trados or Phrase or, God help me, WordFast or other solutions that are out there, and I think, oh, this is kind of interesting. But then as soon as I get a little bit deeper and I try to implement some of the routine processes that I use for uh, some of the complex challenges that people bring to me, I find that the other platforms simply cannot be adapted for those challenges. Or if they can be, my God, there's a lot more work involved. And it would be a lot harder for me to train other people to do that. Or, in the case of memoQ, I can create configurations and special resources that are easily shared with any of you or with any of my clients or friends and colleagues. And in many cases, I simply cannot do that for the other platforms. I might be able to write it up in a text file somewhere and they can copy and paste a lot.
I bet.
Or, if there's a Trados user, inevitably what they say is, oh, but there's something in that, they call it the App Store or whatever oh, there's an extension for that, or there's a plugin. Yeah, right. There's a plugin that is, often created by a third party that may or may not be updated to be compatible with the next version. And you have to be able to navigate the whole plugin library, download and install thing, which has gotten a little bit easier, but
No,
it's just not as
no.
easy or as sustainable
I
as
no,
having
I
people.
I also I also believe that memoQ is the most translator friendly tool out
The most translator friendly, the most PM friendly, the most administrator friendly, honestly, the friendliest.
there. Yeah,
Okay. Now, some people might like Phrase because, oh, it's less confusing. It has fewer features. Well, that's fine, but you can concentrate your training on a core set of features. I think the biggest issue facing memoQ and memoQ users is not functionality, but rather the way that the training of the users, the project managers, and support personnel like the administrators, that is severely deficient.
yeah.
The online courses that are available to train people in these different functions, they're not very good.
No, no.
And they don't promote the kind of problem solving and flexible thinking that will enable these people to go farther independently, having mastered some basic principles. So as having followed my publications for a lot of years, this is one of the things that I try to do. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't, but I try to help people get a general picture of how you can adapt to different scenarios that you might encounter,
Mm,
because it's when stuff doesn't follow the same script that memoQ really begins to shine. But for the basic stuff, like you'd find in any other package, okay, you can do a training program that'll cover that stuff, that shows 10 features out of the 500 that will get 80% of the work done. The problem is that not many people have been focused on creating those kinds of education programs. Something that I and a few friends try to address and continue trying. But anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for your patience today.
thank you.
It may take me a day or two to get all of this edited and organized in a forum to share online. But have a look on the memoQuickies Substack, probably Thursday,
Okay.
and you'll be able to get this recording and those other resources and links that some of you have generously shared to help explain more of the material we talked about today. All of
Okay.
you have a great remaining rest of the afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on your respective time zones.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you, and see all of you on another occasion.
Okay. Bye.
Oh, here we go.
I can't find the exit. Can't find the exit button.
Now I've gotten lost. I can't actually find this thing. Okay, and I go.